Hello there. Today I'm delighted to be taking a look at a wine from South Australia. This is from Yalumba. This is the Virgilius Eden Valley Viognier, and it's the 2019 vintage of that. This is Yalumba's premium Viognier. They make lower price, lower quality wines, but this is their top Viognier. Yalumba, as a winery, claim to be Australia's oldest family-owned winery, and I have no reason to dispute that claim. They were founded by Samuel Smith in 1849 and released their first wine in 1853. And they're still owned today by the Hill Smith family, so there's a continuity of ownership by the same family there. Also, Yalumba have been pioneers, they've been trailblazers in terms of the growing of Viognier. Back in 1980 they were the first people to plant a commercial sized vineyard of Viognier in the Eden Valley, and their chief winemaker Louisa Rose, who joined them as an assistant winemaker in 1993, has been very much at the forefront of growing and developing the Viognier within their portfolio. So she, as I say, she joined in 1993, became chief winemaker in 2006, but has had responsibility for making the Viognier for about 30 vintages now. So is incredibly experienced with the variety in this region. Yalumba, as a company, have also been pioneers of sustainability in viticulture, sustainability and biodiversity. So they plant biodiverse plots to alongside their vines to ensure that there isn't a monoculture, for instance. And as part of their sustainable approach to viticulture, they've actually got their own nursery in which they can bring in clones and propagate them, which has enabled them to bring in some new clones of Viognier, which hopefully in time will revolutionise the quality of the variety and improve it still further. This particular wine, however, is using the original clone that was worked with. So half the blend comes from some plantings that went into the ground in 1980, and the balance from a vineyard just opposite is from the same clone, so presumably has been propagated from these vines, that was planted in 1995, so the mature vines. 2019 was quite a warm, dry vintage, so in fact it's the cool of the night in the Eden Valley on these sort of sloping vineyards at alcohol that's enabled the wine to retain its acidity. In terms of the winemaking, the wines are hand-picked, the grapes, are hand-picked. The wine is allowed to ferment using its ambient yeast in old French oak, and they use a combination of barriques, 225 litre barrels, 300 litre puncheons, and 600 litre demi-mude. And the wine stays in barrel for about 11 months. So let's have a look at the wine, shall we? I mean, firstly, the colour. The colour is a sort of a medium intensity of yellow. To me, that's not a bright lemony to sort of yellow. That's a slightly more developed, almost sort of strawish yellow. Or alternatively, it's a sort of a very pale gold with perhaps some greenish hints. I think you could look at it in any of those terms. Swirling the wine, interestingly, it's actually throwing some quite intense tears onto the side of the glass there, and it's only labelled as being 13.5% alcohol. So that it's something we'll come back to when we're talking about, but that's an interesting point there, because it's not the alcohol or sweetness, because it's a dry wine, giving body to the wine. This, I think, we'll find will be phenolics, tannins in a white wine. So anyway, let's see what the aromas yield for us. That is a very complex nose. You think of, or I think of Viognier as being very aromatic, and I expect sort of lovely, juicy, ripe stone fruit fruit aromas in there. Now, those are evident, but they're very much overlaid by notes from the indigenous fermentation. So there's a sort of a whetstone, a gunflint, a gunpowdery sort of mineral note to the aromas there, and that's quite noticeable. There are perhaps slightly nutty notes, almondy notes, delicate almond notes. There are notes of spice, ginger. This is incredibly complex, and then behind that there's that sort of ripe, quite juicy aroma of apricot, ripe peach. So let's have a taste. The wine is fresh, it's mid-weight, it's structured. As the freshness gives way, you've got weight on the mid-palate, and then an oiliness cuts in, along with sort of rich, ripe, and this is where the ripe apricot-y fruit really does make itself seen. There are those notes of gingeriness, maybe a touch of cinnamon, those sort of sweet spices. There's, as I say, an oily texture, a slight milkiness as well. The flavours are incredibly complex. There's a little bit of that whetstone note, but not as much as you get on the aromas. The flavours are lasting well. The acidity is not particularly high, and yet there's a freshness, there's a nice freshness. And I think the point is that there's a lovely fine tannin in there. It's not particularly astringent. There's a tiny drying note, but not really marring anything. And that's just combining with the acidity, which is pleasant enough, and just lifting the fruit really nicely. You know, this is the slight bitterness working in the same way that acidity would. The alcohol is beautifully in balance. It's giving a roundness to the later palate, and the finish has some of those stone fruit, ripe peach, ripe apricot notes that are still to open a little more. I mean, this wine is coming up for 5 years old, so it has some nice aging characteristics. It's sort of filling out quite nicely, but I think this will open a bit more to reveal more of those fruit aromas given a couple of years. I wouldn't leave it too long, but another couple of years would help. And the other thing to mention is with Viognier, I think there's a danger of having Viognier too cold, because it's a rich wine with plenty of aromas. I think if you over chill it, you can lose those aromas, and often in that case, the last glass of the bottle you have shows the potential that you should have seen in the first glass. So don't have it in a cold fridge for a while, or if you do, take it out for 20 minutes or so, let it warm up before drinking it, because not necessarily drinking it warm, but over chilling it can dumb down some of the most gorgeous aspects of that. So I hope I've made it clear that I think this is an absolutely super wine. Wonderful complexity, so much going with it in terms of its structure, its beautiful complex flavours, that matching this with food should be a dream. I mean, the fact that it doesn't have high acidity will mean it will go beautifully with spicy foods, with sort of Thai curries and things like that, and the richness of the flavours will sit alongside sort of nice ripe flavours in a dish. So yes, Yalumba's The Virgilius Viognier 2019. Thank you very much for watching, and if you've enjoyed the video, do please feel free to like and share, and I hope you'll join us again. Bye now.